Hey guys, welcome to the Simplify Your Life podcast. It's Coach Simona and I'm glad you decided to tune in. What's up everyone? In today's podcast episode, I have a very special co-host. As you can see by the title, my husband Dim is going to join us and we're both going to share with you our thoughts on 5 topics that have been essential to our growth as a couple and as individuals in our 5 years of marriage. Also, I'll be giving you more details on how to enter the giveaway later in this episode, so stay tuned for that. Alright, without further ado, meet my husband Dim. Hey honey, thank you so much for agreeing to host this special episode with me.
Hey love, thank you for inviting me to your 100th episode. It's great to be on the other side of the podcast. Folks, you have no idea how much effort goes into preparing, recording, editing, and publishing a podcast episode like this. And your coach here really loves doing it. Love, congrats on your 100th episode. I've learned so much from watching you get here.
Thank you so much, love. I really appreciate it. Alright, guys, we have 5 topics for you today: health, financial freedom, personal development, love, and travel. There will also be timestamps in the description box below if you want to skim ahead to a particular topic. But if you want to get all the juicy details, I suggest you listen to the entire episode. Now, let's start with the first one. Love, let's talk about health.
So, one thing that works out particularly good for us as a couple is a primarily plant-based diet. And I like how you phrase it whenever we talk about that with our friends. You're eating food that's alive, primarily salads and stuff like that. And it is giving us so much more energy than cooked down, boiled down food without all the nutrients.
Yeah, I feel like I have so much more energy, and I've been actually trying out intermittent fasting lately, which is something that you've tried out first actually. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I discovered intermittent fasting because I had a period at a previous employer of mine where I just couldn't find any time for lunch. And I'm not a person who likes to have breakfast. Definitely not a breakfast guy. So I started skipping lunches and breakfasts altogether. Of course, I started to think if this is healthy at all and if I'm not putting any harm to my health. So I started researching the topic and it turns out that it was a thing and it was called intermittent fasting. So, intermittent fasting is the practice of skipping meals for a certain part of the day, right? So, you either, for example, don't have breakfast and lunch, or you skip lunch and dinner altogether, which has a surprising number of health benefits. Not a medical expert, but for me, it does the trick really well, and it helps me feel really focused, and I think the same for you.
Yeah, I've been trying out intermittent fasting in the past few months, and I've also seen great results.
Which brings me to our next point. Sleep. Something that is surprisingly hard to get in this time of social distancing and lack of movement. So personally, I find it kind of hard to get tired nowadays because before we used to have so much more movement. Now, you've been experimenting with some ways to deal with that. I think it's also been affecting you as well.
Yeah, I've been journaling way more, and I used to meditate only in the morning, but now I also meditate at night and it helps me sleep better. The second topic we're going to talk to you about today is financial freedom, and I'm going to hand this over to my husband.
And guys, I am no financial professional, trust me on this. At the same time, I've been deeply interested in the topic of personal finance for years. And one of the things we've been doing as a family that's particularly been working out for us over the past 5 years is our intent to continuously be building multiple streams of income. And I can't emphasize enough the value of building multiple streams of income if you are in a long-term relationship or if you're part of a family. Especially in times like this one, in times of crisis where there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of volatility out there. If your income doesn't depend 100% on your job, then at least you have some sort of financial cushion to land on if you know what hits the fan. And my favorite type of multiple streams of income, or at least my favorite 2 types, are passive income and investing. Now, when it comes to passive income, I think your coach here can also share some of her experience because Your latest book, 111 Ways to Simplify Your Life, is a classic example of how to build a passive income because you invested a lot of effort in writing something once, but once you put it out there and you start attracting readers to it, you start to benefit from these efforts.
Yeah, having digital products is one of the best ways to earn passive income, and having a YouTube channel is actually another one.
Think about it, guys. Each of you has unique skills and each of you has unique knowledge that they can share with the world. But I honestly believe that any person and any couple can continuously try to build multiple streams of income so that they get closer to financial independence over the long term.
Now, honey, I know that you're really passionate about investing, so why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So here's something that we do every month. Money comes in. We take about 15%, I just calculated that on my iPhone, 15% of our income, and we put it into our savings account. And then on top of that, I take some of our money and then I invest it into the stock market. Now, guys, again, not one to tell you what to do with your finances, but research this. Einstein once said, compound interest is the eighth miracle of the world. The way that you can take a certain amount of money and invest them, as long as you are good in picking either big funds or companies to invest in, and the way that that money can compound and grow over time, especially in the lifespan of 10, 20, 30 years, it's impressive, and that's one of the best ways, if you're not already a multi-millionaire coming in, to create your family wealth. One thing you're going to learn about us as a family is that we are really into trackers.
Yeah, we love tracking stuff and we love spreadsheets and we're big geeks.
So here's one more tracker I created 1 year ago. And this is what I call the Family Net Worth Tracker. Here's the deal. What if every month we as a family could be tracking what is our total net worth? So what's the total value of the assets we own? So that's everything we have from property to cars to computers, investments, money in the bank, and everything else. And consciously try to grow that over time. So one of the things we've been doing for the past year is tracking our family net worth. And I think by doing so and by consciously focusing our efforts to grow it, we've managed to grow it by about 100%.
Wow.
But here's the thing. Have common goals, and I can't emphasize this enough. Because when the two of us start to focus on building up and compounding our wealth, everything becomes easier. Which brings me to our next topic. And on this topic, I'm going to stay silent and I'm going to let your coach here speak because she's the true expert in that. And that topic is personal development. Now, here's the thing. You are one of the best people I know when it comes to learning new things and acquiring new skills. And I really think you have a lot to say about that.
Thank you, love. I really appreciate you saying that. Well, guys, I've been a lifelong learner and I've taken a lot of courses and I've seen a lot of videos. But the truth is that if you're constantly consuming content and you're not really paying attention to what's happening inside of you, you're distracting yourself from your real feelings. So it's important to notice if you're doing it as a distraction or you're doing it as a form of becoming a better version of yourself. So my tip here is to be careful what content you consume. And I think we sometimes fall into the trap of knowing too much and doing too little. And that is something that we've also noticed as a couple, haven't we?
Right? I think if just getting the knowledge you need was enough to get you to where you want to go, everyone would be a millionaire.
Yeah.
And everyone would be happy and everyone would have amazing relationships and life would be perfect. But that's not really the case, is it?
Yeah. And I actually remember something that you said to me about a year ago, and that was don't save money on know-how. Can you elaborate on that?
Yep. So here's the thing. The more we grow as a family, and the more you and I grow as individuals within that family, the more specific knowledge we need to get ahead. And very often that knowledge comes expensive. You need to invest in courses, you need to invest in knowledge, you need to invest in coaching, you need to invest in consulting hours. It doesn't matter. And I genuinely believe that if we get to a point where we make $10 million per year and we'd like to make $100 million per year, we'll probably need to pay $1 million to someone to tell us how, and I'd be totally okay paying that money, because we should never be saving on know-how that can get us to where we want to go.
Yeah, I love that. I think that you should always invest in yourself, but keep it humble.
Exactly.
One last point that I want to make on personal development is that you should always work on your past trauma if you want to move ahead in life. So if that means going to therapy, go to therapy. If that means hiring a coach, hire a coach. If that means investing in a course, invest in a course. What I mean by this is you need to invest in yourself if you want to get ahead in life. And that is something that we've done as a family, and I'm super grateful that we're always growing together.
Yes, and the past is a very good predictor of the future, but the past is never the same as the present moment. And this is especially true for new relationships. I remember the beginning of our relationship, it wasn't the smoothest ride, but
No.
you tend to go into new things in life with your previous experiences and with your past traumas from life. And it's so important that you get out of these so that you can be present in the moment and you can be adequate to what's happening around you. And you can connect to others despite what's happened to you in the past, because we've all had moments where we felt hurt. We've all had moments where we've not succeeded. We've all had moments where we failed. I have my fair share of these throughout my whole life, and I'm pretty sure you do as well.
Yeah.
But these are not things that we should be stopping us from moving forward.
Yeah, and that actually leads me to the next topic, which is love. And I think that if you don't work through your past traumas, you can be authentic with the person you love. And in the beginning of our relationship, I remember being super closed off. I was afraid of getting hurt. And it took me quite a while to open up and show you the real me. And I believe it was the same for you.
It's the same, and it doesn't change. So we enter into new situations, and new situations are generally uncomfortable for anyone. And learning how to be authentic in these is always a challenge. Like right now, guys, you have no idea how hard it is to record a podcast for the first time as a family. But
Oh my gosh, it's one of the hardest things we've done as a couple, and we're laughing a lot, so we have to cut off a lot of things.
But to grow, you need to get yourself in uncomfortable situations, but also to bond as a couple in these uncomfortable situations. We need to learn how to be authentic with each other and how to connect. And that's always a challenge. It's not an easy thing, and it doesn't stop. I don't think if you consult with someone who's had 30, 40, 50 years of marriage, probably doesn't get easier with time.
No, I don't think it's getting easier, but I think that one thing that helps a lot is having fun together. And another thing that we've realized as a couple is that when we're arguing, it's important to set your ego aside and think about the outcome that you want to achieve as a couple, because us is bigger than me.
And that's something I forgot where we learned that from. And it's this phrase that goes like, arguments in a family should always end in a constructive way. This is so powerful. Ever since I read that somewhere in a book or listened to it somewhere in a podcast, it's stuck in my mind. Don't have arguments that end in a destructive way, because these are the arguments that destroy the connection between the two of you. And, we're guilty of having our fair share of these as well. I mean,
Yeah,
any family does it.
we're very passionate people and we're A-type personalities, but the important thing is that we always find our way back to each other.
Exactly. And with time, and shout out to a couple friend of ours who taught us this, but over time you learn how to argue in a way that actually helps you get forward.
Yeah.
And not in a way that actually sets you backward. So that's a great skill to have.
Yeah, and another thing we do as a couple is we celebrate our anniversary every single month.
The anniversary.
Yeah, anniversary, I love that.
One of those things we learned as a couple, and one of those things that have been highly effective for us as a couple, is learning to drop the expectations. Because God Almighty, we come in with so many expectations.
It's true.
from these relationships, and there's all these movies, especially women see these movies with the knights on the white horse. They set so many expectations for you ever since you were a child that sometimes life becomes difficult to keep up.
Yeah, I agree. I had so many expectations from watching romantic movies, and I expected you to be this Prince Charming, and turns out you're King Charming, so that's even better.
I love you.
I love you too.
Which brings us to our next topic. And this is the topic of travel.
Mm-hmm.
Something we became really good at as a couple is getting lost in new places.
Yeah.
And where we learned that first, was it in Paris or in Barcelona? I don't know.
No, I think it was in Italy.
In Verona?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was back in our honeymoon,
Yeah.
and we were in a great hotel called Il Fra Lorenzo, up on the hillside of Verona, where at night you would actually see from the balcony the entire city. It was so amazing. But then we would go down to the city, and it was so romantic and so aged, and there were so many small passageways that we just started getting lost in the city instead of going to the tourist traps.
Yeah, and this became one of our favorite things to do when we travel together.
And so from there comes one of my favorite stories. We were getting lost in one of these small passageways, and your coach really started to get hungry at some point. So we found a restaurant, one of those restaurants that isn't even on TripAdvisor, but it was a small, cozy restaurant where local Italians were having lunch and drinking a lot of wine. So we sat down, we ordered something for lunch, and we asked for a glass of wine from the waiter. The waiter was trying to persuade us so much to get a full bottle of wine at lunchtime, and in Italy, especially in Verona, that was so acceptable. I guess, well, maybe if you're a tourist, it's even more acceptable. And I think we needed to convince him for 5 minutes that we would do it a glass of wine each instead of getting the bottle. We're not that heavy drinkers when it comes to wine. But the way that some people in Europe, especially the ones in Italy, the ones in Spain as well,
Yeah.
perhaps those in Portugal, live their lives and enjoy the day without rushing too much and, without waiting to get to the next place. It's one of those things that really stuck in my mind from that honeymoon of ours.
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. And that actually brings me to another point that I have here. And that is that we always find the time and money to travel. And I think it's really important as a couple to have joint experiences together and create memories together.
One thing that you set as a habit for us in our relationship was that we create a goal for ourselves, and then we start contributing money towards that goal until we feel comfortable. We've got plenty of money to buy our plane tickets and then visit that place and not need to worry about how we're spending that money and what restaurants we go to or what perfumes we shop for in the local town stores. Conventional wisdom tells you that you shouldn't mix travel and work. But I think we found a really good balance there.
Yeah.
And folks, you have no idea how many podcast episodes and how many YouTube videos were edited on the passenger seat of my car.
Yeah, guys, I've done a lot of editing, and I think it's really important to utilize the time you spend together, especially on mindless tasks such as rough editing, when you don't really need to think about it as much. Alright, guys, the truth is that we can continue talking about traveling for hours, but most of us don't travel right now, and it's a very delicate situation, so I think we can stop here.
Yeah, in this stage, I hope you guys stay healthy. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
And then hopefully all of us can travel to the places we love fairly soon.
Yeah. Alright, guys, before we move on to the second exciting part of this episode, where I'm going to share with you all the details on how to enter the giveaway, Love, please tell our listeners where they can connect with you.
Sure. If you guys are interested in digital marketing, head on to pages.dimnikolov.net. That's pages.dimnikolov.net and subscribe to my newsletter.
Love, thank you so much for hosting this episode with me.
Pleasure being on the other side of the podcast.
Alright guys, time to give you more details on how to enter the giveaway. I'll be giving away 5 copies of my new book 111 Ways to Simplify Your Life. And one lucky winner will win a $100 Amazon.com gift card. So, to enter the giveaway, just click the first link in the description box or visit bit.ly/simplegiveaway. You can enter by subscribing to my newsletter, subscribing to my YouTube channel, following me on Instagram, etc. The more actions you take, the more entries you get, and the bigger your chance of winning. The giveaway will be open until July 28th, 8 a.m. PST. All winners will be notified via email.
Hurry up, guys!
Good luck, everyone! Now let me know in the comments below which one of the 5 topics we discussed you found most interesting. I would love to know your thoughts. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it. And don't forget to enter the giveaway by visiting bit.ly/simplegiveaway. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I will talk to you in the next one. I love you guys. Bye.